The Blue Star civilization was chosen to participate in a massive survival game called God's Domain. A cold, mechanical voice echoed in everyone's head without warning. In 30 seconds, every healthy adult between the ages of 18 and 50 would be transported. If you died in the game, you died in real life. If every player died, our entire civilization would be erased forever. The world descended into instant chaos. People were panicking, screaming about losing their lives or having to save the world after a long day of work. I sat in my rented room, staring at the computer screen where I was mid-boss fight. It felt surreal. 1 second I was grinding for gear in an MMO, and the next, the game was becoming my reality. I looked calm, but inside, I was terrified. A pillar of white light descended from the ceiling, swallowing me whole. Space twisted, and when I opened my eyes, I was standing in a magnificent, glowing temple. Information flooded my brain. Classes, levels, attributes, gear, skills, and the most important one, longevity. Everyone started with 100 years of life. If you died, you lost a portion of those years depending on how and where it happened. If your lifespan hit 0, it was game over for good. But if you were strong enough to finish quests and level up, you could technically live forever. I didn't hesitate when the system asked for my nickname. I chose Yishan, the name I used in every game. After a quick body scan, a list of classes appeared before me. Warrior, Knight, Assassin, Archer, Mage, Priest, and Summoner. I chose Archer. In a world where death actually mattered, staying at a distance was the smartest move. If I could kill things from far away, I wouldn't have to risk my neck in the front lines. Next came the talent awakening. This was the most important part. Talents ranged from rank F all the way to SSS. An A-rank talent made you 1 in 10,000. An S rank made you a superstar that every faction would fight over. The system chimed. I had awakened a unique eternal grade talent, Infinite Backpack. I froze. The guide said SSS was the limit. What was eternal grade? I checked the details. Anything that entered my backpack would become infinite in quantity. On top of that, the talent had the highest priority. It couldn't be sealed, stolen, copied, or even detected by others. I stood there in silence for 3 seconds before a grin spread across my face. Potions, gold, equipment. If I put one in, I'd have 1,000,000. This wasn't just a backpack. It was an infinite warehouse of resources. The system announced I was being sent to Novice Village 9527. With a flash of white light, I appeared in a rustic village square crowded with other players. Everyone was shouting about their talents. One guy was bragging about a B-rank talent, acting like a god. I ignored them and opened my starter gift pack. Inside was a basic longbow, a bundle of 100 arrows, 5 health potions, and 5 mana potions. Then, the notifications started screaming in my ear. Starter longbow detected. Quantity, infinite. Starter arrows detected. Quantity, infinite. Health potions detected. Quantity, infinite. I looked at my inventory and saw the symbols for infinity next to every single item. I've played games for 10 years, but I've never seen a broken start like this. I equipped my bow, feeling a surge of confidence. Nearby, a guy named Kwang Dao started yelling. He had an A-rank talent called Berserk Power that boosted his attack by 50%. He was already recruiting a squad, claiming he'd be the top dog of Village 9527. People flocked to him, desperate for a carry. I glanced at him and kept walking. A 50% boost was nice, but it didn't even compare to what I had. I needed to get out of the village and start grinding. This was a global game, and if the players from China fell behind, we'd all be in trouble. As I stepped past the village gates, a system-wide announcement rang out. I, Yi Shun, was the first player in Village 9527 to leave the safety zone. The real game was finally beginning. A faint, white skill book suddenly appeared in my backpack, a random common grade skill book. Then, that familiar notification rang in my ears again. It detected the book entering my infinite backpack. The quantity instantly changed. It was now infinite. I stopped dead in my tracks. I stared at the endless stack of books in my inventory, and I couldn't help but grin. This was the real beginning. Most players would be lucky to find one of these, but I had a never-ending supply. Even if they were just basic skills, I could learn every single one of them. I could even stand at the village gates and sell them like a wholesaler if I wanted to. But I wasn't that stupid. Exposing a power like the infinite backpack before I could protect myself was a death sentence. A man's treasure is his downfall if he lacks the strength to keep it. I needed to see what I could get first. With a quick thought, I used one. A notification popped up. I had learned the archer skill, precision shot. At level 1, it gave my next attack a 10% boost to accuracy and damage. It was simple, but practical for the early game. I didn't stop there. I used another one. This time, I got Gale Steps. My movement speed increased by 20% for 10 seconds. As an archer, getting caught by a monster was a nightmare. This was a literal lifesaver. I kept going. Next was Piercing Arrow, which dealt 120% physical damage and ignored 10 points of defense. Then came Double Shot, firing 2 arrows for 70% damage each. Finally, I pulled a passive skill called Eagle Eye. It boosted my attack range and crit rate. In just a few seconds, I had 5 skills. Most archers started with nothing but a basic attack, yet I hadn't even killed a single mob, and I already had a full kit. This was the terrifying power of infinity. I tried to use a 6th book, but the notification changed. I had rolled a duplicate of Precision Shot. The system asked if I wanted to convert it into skill proficiency. My eyes lit up. I thought duplicates would be a waste, but this changed everything. I hit convert. My proficiency jumped by 100 points instantly. Precision Shot leveled up to level 2. The damage and accuracy climbed to 12%. I started laughing. This meant I didn't just have every skill. I could max them all out in minutes. Other players would spend days grinding to level up a single skill. I just had to keep clicking. I forgot about hunting for a moment. I stood there, frantically using the books over and over. The notifications blurred into a constant hum in my ear. Piercing Arrow reached level 2. Gale Steps hit level 3. Eagle Eye jumped to level 4. My skill panel was transforming at a ridiculous speed. Within a few minutes, every single one of my common grade skills hit level 10. I took a deep breath as I looked at the final stats. Precision Shot now gave me 30% extra damage. Gale Steps boosted my speed by 60% for 20 seconds. Piercing Arrow was now a monster, dealing 180% damage and ignoring a massive 100 points of defense. Most early-game monsters didn't even have 20 points of armor. To them, I'd be dealing true damage. Even Eagle Eye was insane now, giving me 30% more range and a 10% crit rate. The further away I stayed, the safer I was. The higher my crit, the faster I could one-shot anything in my path. This was the power of unlimited resources. It was broken. It was completely unfair. I hadn't even fired a single arrow yet, and I was already miles ahead of every other player in the world. They were just basic skills, but that didn't matter. I'd find higher-tier books later. For now, it was time to test my power. I turned my gaze toward a green-skinned mantis wandering nearby. It was time to hunt. My target was a level 1 green-skinned mantis. It was a basic white-grade mob with 80 health points, 8 attack, and 3 defense. It looked like an easy first kill. I pulled back the string of my beginner's bow, and a wooden arrow automatically materialized. Having infinite arrows was a dream. I didn't have to worry about resources or weight. I just had to aim. The mantis sensed the danger and snapped its head toward me, but it was already too late. I triggered my piercing arrow skill. The arrow whistled through the air and punched a hole right through the creature's head. A massive red number popped up, 166 damage. It was a total overkill. I received 10 experience points and 3 copper coins. As soon as those coins hit my inventory, the system chimed in my ear. My copper coin count shifted from 3 to the infinity symbol. I stood there in silence for a moment, a slow grin spreading across my face. Even the money was infinite now. I realized that if I put a stray dog into my bag, I'd probably end up with an infinite pack of hounds. This system was beyond broken. With unlimited money, I didn't have to worry about costs ever again. If it was for sale, it was mine. I turned back toward the novice village. Before I tackled any real dungeons, I needed to buy out every shop in town. When I reached the village square, players were still arguing over team compositions. A guy named Kwang Dao stood in the center of the crowd, acting like a king. He had an A-rank talent that boosted his attack by 50%. He was shouting that he'd only carry pretty girls in his party. A group of female players was already swarming him, calling him the future #1 expert of Village 9527. Kwang Dao spotted me walking back from the wild and smirked. He asked if the night god got scared by the monsters and ran back to safety. The crowd laughed. In this game, death cost you actual lifespan, so people were naturally terrified. I didn't bother explaining. I didn't have time for him. My silence only made him more confident. He told me that since I was brave enough to leave first, he'd let me join his team, provided I gave him all the best loot and skill books. I almost laughed out loud. He had an A-rank talent and hadn't even killed a mob yet, but he was already acting like a god. Usually, guys like this were the first to die. Not interested, I said, walking right past him toward the general store. Kwang Dao's face turned purple. He hissed at my back, telling me I'd better pray I didn't run into him in the wild. I didn't even look back. I told him he should be the one praying he didn't get in my way. Right now, his A-rank talent might be useful, but the gap between us was about to become an abyss. I stepped into the general store and started clicking. I bought a town portal scroll and a low-level identification scroll. Then I bought a random teleportation scroll. Each time I bought one, the cost was deducted, and the item became infinite. The shopkeeper's eyes widened as he saw me paying without blinking. He leaned over the counter and whispered that he had the real, good stuff hidden away. He pulled out a wooden box containing 3 items, a rough storage ring for 5,000 copper, a map of the area for 3,000, and a mana recovery crystal for 8,000. The ring caught my eye immediately. It was an uncommon grade item that added 10 slots to the inventory. For a normal player, 10 slots were great. For me, it was a game changer. I'll take everything, I said. The total came to 16,000 copper. I paid, and suddenly, I had infinite storage rings, infinite maps, and infinite mana crystals. I took a deep breath. This felt better than any PC game I'd ever played. I asked if he had anything better, but the owner just scoffed and told me this was a village, not a legendary armory. I smiled and headed to the apothecary next door. As I walked, I started spamming the storage rings from my bag. Your inventory has increased by 10 slots. Your inventory has increased by 10 slots. In seconds, my bag went from 20 slots to 600. It was glorious. At the potion shop, I told the owner I wanted one of every single potion she had. Health, mana, antidotes, buff serums, I bought them all. Within minutes, my bag was a pharmacy of infinite supplies. Unless I got one shot, I was basically immortal. If things got too hairy, I had infinite teleport scrolls to bail me out. I was playing a completely different game than everyone else. Finally, I made my way to the blacksmith shop. The rhythmic sound of a hammer hitting an anvil echoed through the air. A massive, muscular man was working the forge. Without looking up, he grunted, "You here to buy gear?" "Yes," I replied, looking at the gleaming steel on the walls. "All of it." I scanned the blacksmith shelves. Starter swords, daggers, staves, bows, and basic armor. It was all standard gear for other classes. I didn't need any of it. "Old man," I said, catching the smith's attention. "Do you have any bows? The best one you've got." The blacksmith looked me up and down. He had clearly noticed me burning through cash at the apothecary and the general store. He knew I was loaded. He reached behind the counter and pulled out a sleek, elegant weapon. It was a Gale longbow, an uncommon grade item. It required level 1 and offered 15 physical attack, 3 agility, and a 5% boost to attack speed. The price was 10,000 copper. I didn't even blink. I paid the man, and as soon as the bow hit my inventory, the quantity shifted to infinity. I equipped it instantly. I felt the surge of power in my grip. My attack, agility, and speed all spiked. I asked if he had anything else, but the smith just shook his head. This was a starter village, after all. It was time to go hunting. As I walked out of the shop, the village square was buzzing with excitement. A player named Kwang Dao had just returned, and the crowd was losing their minds. He had reached level 2 already. With his A-grade talent, he was the local celebrity. He marched through the square carrying a blood-stained iron sword, looking incredibly smug. For players followed him, looking battered and pale from a hard fight. It was just a few green-skinned mantises, Kwang Dao bragged. "Follow me, and you'll level up faster than anyone else." The surrounding players looked on with pure envy. Most of them hadn't even worked up the courage to leave the village yet. Then, Kwang Dao spotted me. He raised an eyebrow and smirked. Night God, you're still in the village? Don't tell me you're so scared of the monsters that you can't leave. A few players nearby started snickering. They remembered me being the first one to walk out earlier. Seeing me back so soon, they assumed I had chickened out. They whispered about how the game wasn't for everyone and how my earlier bravado was just a joke. I looked at Kwang Dao. Level 2? Was that supposed to be impressive? I didn't waste my breath. To me, he was just a clown with a loud mouth. I turned and headed for the village exit. Watch yourself out there, Night God, Kwang Dao shouted after me. Try not to wet your pants. He and his friends burst out laughing. But before the sound of their laughter could even fade, I activated Gale Steps. In a sudden blur of speed, I vanished from their sight. The crowd gasped. They couldn't understand how an archer could move that fast. I didn't care what they thought. I was already miles away. I stepped back into the wild and entered an area called Mantis Slope. A group of green-skinned mantises were wandering through the tall grass. I pulled back the string of my Gale longbow and took aim. I didn't hesitate. I fired an armor-piercing arrow. The projectile whistled through the air and pierced a mantis right through its skull. A massive red number popped up, 348. A critical hit. The level 1 monster died instantly. It dropped a mantis claw, a common crafting material. As soon as I picked it up, the count in my bag turned to infinity. My mind started racing. If this worked for common drops, what would happen when I found dragon scales or divine blood? The potential was staggering. I kept moving, firing arrow after arrow. Every time I pulled the string, another mantis hit the dirt. I picked up some rabbit meat from a stray kill, and suddenly, I had an infinite supply of food. In this game, hunger was a real problem. It drained your stamina and lowered your stats. But with infinite meat, I could camp in the wild forever. I didn't need to waste time running back to the village to rest. I pushed deeper into the slope. The level 1 mobs were giving too little experience. I needed something stronger. I activated Gale Steps again, moving like a ghost through the grass until I found the level 2 copper-skinned mantises. These things were bigger, with red eyes and thick shells. I didn't stop. I fired a precision shot from 40 meters away. The arrow hit the mantis right between the eyes. 198 damage. Another one-shot kill. Normal players needed a full party and careful coordination to take these down. I just stood back and deleted them one by one. I was a one-man army. My arrows were free, and my supplies were endless. I didn't even bother picking up the arrows I fired. I just kept shooting. Within 10 minutes, a golden pillar of light washed over me. I had reached level 2. My lifespan increased by another year, and I gained 5 attribute points. I dumped every single point into agility. For an archer, distance and speed are life. If nothing can get close to me, nothing can kill me. I opened my status window to check my progress. Name, Night God. Level 2. Lifespan, 101 years. I was just getting warmed up. My stats were looking lethal. I had 110 mana, 110 physical attack, and my physical defense sat at 42. My agility had climbed to 22, giving me a 10% critical hit rate. I didn't stop to admire the numbers. I pushed deeper into the grasslands, leaving a trail of copper-skinned mantis carcasses in my wake. My experience bar was filling up at a ridiculous speed. When I took down my 80th mantis, a unique notification pinged in my ear. I had picked up a special item, a bloodstained silver pocket watch. The quality was listed as unknown. As soon as it hit my inventory, another message popped up. The system detected the watch, but it didn't multiply. It was a unique quest item. My infinite backpack couldn't copy it. I paused for a second. This was the first time my talent had failed to trigger. But it made sense. The talent promised infinite quantities of items, but a unique quest item is, by definition, one of a kind. If anything, this proved the watch was incredibly important. I pulled the watch out to examine it. The silver surface was dull, stained with dark, dried blood, and a deep crack ran across the casing. On the back, I saw a line of small, elegant text, "To my beloved daughter. May the starlight protect you forever." My heart skipped a beat. This was clearly a trigger for a hidden quest. I checked the item description. A precious lost item belonging to a resident of the novice village. Perhaps you should return to the village and find its owner. I couldn't believe my luck. Hidden quests were notoriously hard to trigger, and here I was, only level 2, holding one in my hand. I tucked the watch away, but I didn't head back immediately. My experience bar was over halfway to the next level. I decided to keep grinding. The quest wasn't going anywhere, but I wasn't about to kill my leveling efficiency. As I moved further in, the mantises started to thin out. They were replaced by gray-black, three-legged insects. These were level 3 tri-legged beetles. They had 350 health, 35 attack, and 15 defense. They even had active skills, gnaw and charge. 3 of them spotted me and charged instantly, baring their jagged mandibles. I didn't panic. I drew the Gale longbow and let fly an armor-piercing shot. The arrow whistled through the air and punched straight through the first beetle's head. A red 386 crit popped up. 1 shot, 1 kill. The other 2 were closing in fast. I tapped the ground, activating Gale's steps, and drifted backward like a leaf in the wind. While midair, I pulled the string tight. Double shot. 2 arrows streaked out, hitting for 126 and 128 damage. 1 beetle's health bar vanished. I finished it off with a basic attack, but the third one was already lunging at my throat. Its teeth were less than half a meter from my face. Most players would have panicked. I just reached into my bag and pulled out a scroll. It was a random teleportation scroll. To anyone else, this was a consumable emergency item. To me, it was an infinite use blink spell. Flash. I vanished and reappeared 30 meters away. The beetle slammed into the dirt where I had been standing a split second before. I smirked. This was the real way to play the game. Other players hoarded these scrolls for life or death situations because they were so expensive. I used them like basic movement skills. Precision shot. The arrow pinned the last beetle to the grass. I looted a piece of beetle hide, which, true to form, immediately became an infinite stack in my bag. I kept hunting. Between my speed, my range, and my endless supply of teleport scrolls, the beetles couldn't even touch me. 10 minutes later, another pillar of gold light hit me. Level 3. I gained another year of life and 5 more attribute points. I dumped them all into agility again. My movement speed surged. I was becoming a blur on the battlefield. Now that I was level 3, I decided it was time to check on that watch. I pulled out a town portal scroll. A 10-second cast and a flash of white light later, I was back in Novice Village number 9527. The village was much rowdier now. More players were trying to venture out, but most were coming back bloodied and bruised. I heard them complaining nearby. One guy was shouting about how 2 green mantises nearly killed him. Another was mourning a teammate who got tackled by a copper-skinned mantis and lost 3 years of his lifespan. This game was brutal. In the center of the plaza, a player named Madblade was surrounded by a crowd. He had reached level 2 and was halfway to level 3, acting like the king of the village. He started to say something, but he stopped when he saw me emerge from the teleportation light. His face shifted. A town portal scroll? Those cost 50 copper coins. No solo player should have that kind of money this early. He stared at me, trying to gauge my strength, but in this game, you can't see a player's level unless they want you to. I ignored him and walked toward the edge of the village. I found a dilapidated wooden shack in a quiet corner. A young girl in a gray dress sat by the door. As I approached, she looked up and saw the silver watch in my hand. Big brother. Her voice trembled. Where did you find that? I handed it to her gently. Deep in Mantis Slope, on the ground. She took the watch, and tears immediately began to stream down her face. This is my father's watch. He said he'd bring it back and take me to see the stars. But he never came home. A quest notification appeared. Asterisk hidden quest triggered. The missing hunter. Irene's father went to investigate the insect movements 3 days ago and hasn't returned. Find him. Difficulty, excellent. Reward, unknown, asterisk. I hit accept without hesitation. Irene looked at me through blurry eyes. Big brother, can you find him? The village chief says the grasslands are dangerous, but I just need to know where he is. I'll find him, I promised. You shouldn't make promises so easily, young adventurer. A raspy voice came from behind me. I turned to see an old man leaning on a wooden staff. It was Horn, the village chief. He looked at me with a heavy expression. Irene's father was our best hunter. If he went missing, something terrifying is lurking out there. You are too weak. Going there is just suicide. I gave him a calm smile. I won't know until I try. The chief narrowed his eyes. Confidence is good, but blind arrogance will get you killed. I didn't argue. I just looked him in the eye. And if I solve the problem? The chief stared at me for a long time, silent. The village chief, Horn, finally spoke. His voice was slow and heavy. He told me that if I could actually find Irene's father and stop whatever was happening deep in the grasslands, he'd grant me an extra reward on behalf of the village. Suddenly, my quest notification flickered and changed. The hidden quest, the missing hunter, had been upgraded. The difficulty was now rare, and the rewards had been significantly increased. This was exactly what I wanted. Take this, Horn said, handing me a small glass vial. Consider it my personal contribution to your survival. I looked at the item, Hunter's Potion, excellent grade. Because of my infinite backpack talent, the quantity immediately shifted from 1 to infinite. The potion granted a 20% damage boost against beast-type monsters for 10 minutes. A grin spread across my face. I couldn't help it. A 20% damage boost for 10 minutes? With my talent, this wasn't just a temporary buff. This was a permanent increase to my power. Thanks, I said. I didn't waste time with more words. I turned and headed straight out of the village. Behind me, the chief sighed. He looked at my back with a worried expression, probably wondering if I'd ever return alive. The players nearby weren't worried, though they were buzzing. They had overheard the conversation. Holy crap, did Night God just trigger a hidden quest? One guy shouted. The missing hunter? The rewards must be insane, another added. Follow him. In the middle of the crowd, Mad Blade stood with a dark expression. He was an A-rank talent holder, yet he hadn't seen a single hidden quest. Why did this guy get one? Greed flashed in his eyes. If the rewards were that good, he wanted them. Let's go, Mad Blade growled, gripping his iron blade. We're going to the deep grasslands too. I knew they were following me. I could hear them. But I didn't care. If they wanted to follow me into a death trap, they were welcome to try. Staying alive was their problem, not mine. I activated Gale Step. My body felt light as I blurred across the grass like a gust of wind. Behind me, Mad Blade and 4 of his lackeys were struggling to keep up. Boss, that kid is too fast, one of them panted, gasping for air. Mad Blade's face was grim. He realized my speed wasn't normal. I clearly had a high-level movement skill. It didn't make sense to him. How did I have a rare skill and a hidden quest already? He convinced himself I was just showing off. Just keep up, Mad Blade snapped. I want to see what he's actually capable of once we hit the deep territory. I ignored the tails and focused on the quest marker. I was getting close. I pulled out dozens of Hunter's Potions and started chugging them one after another. You used Hunter's Potion. Damage against beasts increased by 20% for 100 minutes. 200 minutes. It felt great. But the players behind me were losing their minds. They kept finding empty potion bottles I'd tossed aside. Is he serious? One player yelled, picking up a bottle. He's drinking excellent grade potions like they're water. This is a total waste. Maybe they're quest items, another suggested. If the quest gives out stuff like this, the final reward might be epic grade gear. Their greed was reaching a breaking point. Up ahead, a 3-legged bug skittered toward me. I didn't even slow down. I drew my bow and fired. Armor-piercing arrow. The projectile whistled through the air and slammed into the bug's head. Critical hit, 472. The level 3 monster died instantly. A few more bugs nearby hissed and lunged at me. I stepped back, drawing my bow in one fluid motion. Double shot. 2 arrows became a blur, and another bug hit the dirt. 3 more rushed me. Instead of panicking, I tore a random teleport scroll. Flash. I vanished, reappearing 40 meters away. Before the bugs could even turn around, I fired a precision shot. The 3rd one dropped. It was seamless. I was farming level 3 mobs like they were nothing. When Mad Blade and his crew finally caught up, they stopped dead. They saw 7 or 8 carcasses rotting on the ground. No way, someone whispered. He's soloing groups of level 3 mobs? He's a long-range class, but they can't even touch his clothes. Look at that damage. Mad Blade's ego took a massive hit. He was level 2 and struggled to kill a single level 2 mantis, even with a team. Watching me kite an entire pack without taking a scratch made his blood boil. So what if he's fast? Mad Blade spat, though his voice lacked conviction. He's still just one guy? We'll see who gets the reward in the end. I reached a rocky slope littered with broken arrows and dried blood. There were more bug corpses here, but these hadn't been killed by me. This was where the battle happened. Asterisk notification. You have found traces of the hunter Rowan. Follow the blood trail. Asterisk. A faint red line appeared on the ground. I followed it behind a massive boulder and found a snapped hunting bow. It hadn't just been dropped, it had been bitten in half. My eyes narrowed. Whatever did this was much stronger than a standard three-legged bug. We were talking about a boss. The smell of blood grew thicker. I pushed forward, killing everything in my path. My experience bar was inching toward level 4. As I downed the last bug in the immediate area, a low, guttural howl echoed from the depths of the rocks. A woo. The tall grass rustled violently. A dozen large, black insects crawled out. Their eyes were a haunting, glowing red, and foul saliva dripped from their mandibles. Level 4, bloodthirsty three-legged bug, excellent grade. HP, 800/800. The players watching from the distance gasped. A dozen excellent grade monsters at once? To them, I was already dead. I was surrounded. A lone archer trapped by a dozen elite monsters was a death sentence. Even a full team led by a powerhouse like Mad Blade wouldn't stand a chance here. Mad Blade watched from the shadows, his eyes gleaming with a twisted sort of excitement. He was waiting for me to die. If I fell, the hidden quest might fail or reset, giving him the chance to swoop in and take over. Even if he couldn't take the quest, he was betting on my death. In this world, dying didn't just cost you a year of your lifespan. It also meant there was a high chance of dropping items from your backpack. Don't move yet, Mad Blade whispered to his team, licking his lips. Wait until he's on his last breath. Then we strike. Are we saving him, boss? One of his teammates asked, looking confused. Mad Blade let out a cold laugh. Save him? I'm here for the quest rewards. If he dies, we loot the body and finish the job. I stood in the center of the rocky slope, surrounded by 12 bloodthirsty three-legged bugs. I didn't panic. To be honest, I was a little surprised. They were all excellent grade monsters. This hidden quest was definitely going to pay out well. The bugs didn't give me time to think. They moved with terrifying speed, lunging at me the second my scout skill finished. I didn't hesitate. I ripped a random teleport scroll. I vanished and reappeared 20 meters away. But these things were smarter than the trash mobs I'd fought before. 3 of them pivoted instantly, locking onto my new position and charging again. Smart, I muttered, narrowing my eyes. But not smart enough. I raised my bow. Precise shot. Armor-piercing arrow. I stacked the skills and let fly. The arrow tore through the air and buried itself directly into the lead bug's eye. Asterisk 702. Critical hit. Asterisk. Its health bar vanished. I followed up with a quick basic attack, and the level 4 bug crumpled into the dirt. Notification. You have killed a level 4 bloodthirsty three-legged bug. Experience plus 60. Obtained bloodthirsty claw. Excellent. X1. Quantity updated. Infinite. But I didn't have time to celebrate. The other bugs were already on top of me. One of them blurred into a dark streak, a bloodthirsty charge. It slammed into my chest before I could dodge. 76. The damage number popped over my head, and my health bar plummeted. I was deep in the red. He's hit. The players watching from afar shouted. Yi Shun is finished. Mad Blade gripped his sword, ready to leap out. But then he froze. I didn't panic. I calmly pulled out a basic health potion and downed it. Plus 50 HP. I pulled out another. Plus 50 HP. And another. Plus 50 HP. In the blink of an eye, my health bar was full again. The crowd went silent. Someone finally sputtered. Is he drinking those like water? Does he think those are free? Most players treated a single health potion like a holy relic, saving it for a life-or-death emergency. I had just downed 3 for a flesh wound. Mad Blade's face turned sour. He was probably wondering just how deep my pockets went. To me, it was just common sense. My potions were infinite. Why would I save them for a rainy day when it was pouring right now? Double shot. 2 arrows hissed through the air, hitting the same bug. Asterisk 231. 520. Critical. Asterisk. Another bug hit the dirt. I began to kite them, dancing backward across the rocks. Teleport scrolls, health potions, mana potions. I burned through them like they were worth nothing. To the people watching, it was a display of obscene wealth. To me, it was just a Tuesday. A few minutes later, the last bug fell. Asterisk notification. You have reached level 4. Lifespan plus 1 year. All attributes plus 1. Free attribute points plus 5. Skill points plus 3. Asterisk. A golden light washed over me, restoring my status to peak condition. I dumped all 5 points into agility immediately. I felt faster, sharper. The onlookers were speechless. A lone archer had just systematically wiped out a dozen level 4 excellent monsters. But before they could process it, a roar shook the valley. Roar. The ground trembled. A massive, blood-red insect, the size of a small bull, crawled out from behind the rocks. It was chewing on a piece of bloodstained hunter's cloth. Its glowing crimson eyes locked onto mine. Level 5, Bloodthirsty Bug King, Rare Boss, HP, 12,000/12,000. The stats were insane. 180 attack, 80 defense. It had skills like Bloodthirsty Bite and Wild Roar. Run, someone screamed. That's a rare boss. You can't fight that yet. A level 5 rare boss could one-shot almost any player at this stage of the game. But Mad Blade's eyes weren't filled with fear, they were filled with greed. Get ready, he whispered to his team. Let the kid wear it down. Once the boss is low, we jump in and take the kill. His teammates looked pale. But boss, that's a rare boss. So what? Mad Blade snapped. If he can fight it, we can steal it. The first kill reward, the hidden quest, the rare loot. It's all ours if we get the last hit. I heard the rustle of movement behind me. I knew they were there. I glanced back at Mad Blade and his crew with a flat, cold stare. They wanted to steal my kill? Fine. Let's see if they survive the collateral damage. The Bug King roared and charged. It was incredibly fast. I ripped another teleport scroll, but the moment I reappeared, the boss was already mid-leap toward my new location. Fast, I muttered. Standard kiting wouldn't be enough. I reached into my bag and pulled out a basic agility potion. Agility plus 10% for 60 seconds. Then a basic strength potion. Strength plus 10% for 60 seconds. The players watching were losing their minds. Is he seriously buffing? Those potions cost thousands of copper coins at the shop. He's literally drinking money. I ignored them and drew my Gale longbow. Let's see how many hits you can take. Precise shot. Armor-piercing arrow. The projectile whistled toward the king's eye, but the boss jerked its head, letting the arrow bury into its shoulder instead. 632. Good damage, but against 12,000 HP, I had a long way to go. The Bug King let out a wild roar. A visible shockwave hit me, and my legs felt like lead. Notification: you are affected by Wild Roar. Movement and attack speed reduced by 20% for 10 seconds. The boss didn't waste the opening. It lunged, its massive claws tearing through the air. Bang! I was sent flying across the rocks. 168. My health bar was a tiny sliver of red. I was one hit from death. He's done, Mad Blade yelled, his aura exploding as he prepared to charge. Now, get in there. But I wasn't dead yet. Even as I was tumbling through the air, I didn't reach for one potion. I reached for a whole handful. I tipped my head back and down the potions. My health bar flashed. Plus 50, plus 50, plus 50. The numbers popped up in a rapid blur until my health was completely full. The moment my feet touched the ground, I ripped a random teleport scroll. A flash of white light later, I appeared 50 meters away. I looked at the bloodthirsty Bug King and grinned. Nice damage, I called out. But if you can't one-shot me, you're the one who's going to die. The Bug King seemed to understand. Its crimson eyes burned with pure rage. It let out a deafening roar, and white light shimmered around it. 6 elite bugs crawled out of the ground. Summoning minions now? I muttered. My eyes sharpened. I didn't hesitate. Double shot. Armor-piercing arrow. Precise shot. My fingers were a blur on the string. Arrows whistled through the air, finding their marks one after another. The minions collapsed before they could even reach me. Notification: You have slain a level 4 bloodthirsty bug. Experience plus 60. Back in the shadows, Mad Blade was losing his mind. This bastard just keeps drinking money. At this rate, Yi Shun is actually going to take the boss. He couldn't wait any longer. If I took the kill, their long stakeout would be for nothing. Go! Snatch the boss. Mad Blade roared. He and his 4 teammates charged out from the rocks, sprinting toward the Bug King. Yi Shun, this boss isn't yours alone. Finders keepers. I glanced at them and said calmly, fine. Mad Blade actually stumbled.